Hello and welcome back to the Wheel Talk podcast. My name is Abby Mickey and I'm here with Gracie Elvin and Georgie Howe to talk about Paris-Roubaix Femmes avec Zwift. Gracie, hello.
Hello. Nice to be here as always.
Georgie.
Hi guys, what's up? How good is that racing?
How good.
Really good. We are going to talk about Paris-Roubaix Femmes avec Zwift, one of the biggest races on the women's calendar for the spring. Before we dive into that, just a shout out to Evie Richards on the mountain bike side, who became most successful short track female mountain bike racer ever, surpassing the record of Pauline Ferrand-Prévot, which leads us really nicely into Paris-Roubaix Femmes. But seriously, Evie Richards, one of my favorite human beings on the planet, and such an incredible short track racer, but mountain bike racer. She won both short tracks down in Brazil in round 1 and round 2 of the World Cup. And yeah, becomes the most successful short track racer of all time, which is, comes with a caveat since it's not been around for too long, but just an impressive rider in general. So yeah, it's been fun to watch the first couple rounds of the mountain bike World Cup with the new rules in place about teams having to send riders to Brazil. I feel like these first 2 rounds were more exciting than Brazil has been in the past, or the first couple rounds have been in the past, and was especially cool to see some riders like Sammy, for example, kind of starting off their season really strong and see where they'll go from here. But yeah, mountain bike to kick us off today.
Yeah, and just on that, I'm really enjoying Sammy Maxwell's interviews. She's like, I don't know, just got a really great energy about her, but I saw this really good one and she was just like, I had my period this week and I was just a mess. And she just went on and it was just brilliant. It was so good to just have someone that just was just so open about all of the things that went on into the prep of actually, I think she was second in the race, such a great result. And to just another person normalizing the period thing, and also just the feelings, the emotions around not just your period, but just how you bounce back from freaking out and having a bad day or having bad legs or whatever it is. So I really like that.
Yeah, and she told a reporter to calm down when they're like, "Oh, you've won this race. How good! Isn't this the best thing ever?" And she's like, "I won one race. Just chill."
Settle down.
Yes, she doesn't take herself too seriously.
No, it's good.
She's really having a really good start to the season. And yeah, the period thing was really cool because she didn't make a thing of it. It was just like word vomit after a bike race. It's just so relatable.
Yeah, it's super cool.
On the topic of mountain bike racing, we had Pauline Ferrand-Prévot proving all the haters wrong. It's me. I'm the hater. This weekend at Paris-Roubaix Femmes avec Zwift.
It's a mature thing to admit that. So, chapeau.
Look, I'm not a hater. That was just a really good segue. But I did say going into this year that she might struggle to win a race. And boy, have I been proven wrong. I mean, you cannot have a better comeback than she has had. And yes, she was on the podium at Strada to start the season. And I think that could have been easily attributed to her prowess on the mountain bike and it being gravel and blah, 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 blah. And so maybe that was an overlooked result. And then she has had a couple other good results, and Flanders, for example. And you're like, oh, okay, well, she's clearly going well. But then to come into Paris-Roubaix Femmes avec Zwift, which is such a hard race. And she said before the race that she'd been sick leading up to it. She didn't know if she was going to start. We can talk about whether or not we think that that's an accurate statement or trying to throw people off. But she took the win just convincingly. And by all accounts, it was an absolutely brutal race. It was so hard. And obviously, a lot of the favorites did not have the legs on the day. And PFP, she had the legs and then some to take an astounding win solo. First French woman to win Paris-Roubaix Femmes avec Zwift, which, 5th edition. So it's not but it was just such an impressive victory. And you could hear just the crowd as they came into the velodrome and having a French winner, but also like PFP and who she is and her legacy and all of this. And so we actually had Kaylee Fretz on the ground, and he grabbed some audio of the crowd.
Yeah, like aside from the comparison between the win and the second place at Strada Bianca, like in some ways, this one, like it's a flatter race is harder to win in some ways because the field naturally thins itself out on those hillier races because of the nature of the way physiology works, literally, and who has that VO2 and characteristics physically to get through a hilly day. But Paris-Roubaix is such a different beast, and different beast to other flat races too, because of those cobbled sectors. Of course, there's luck involved, but like you have to be clever and super strong and be able to put it all together on the day. And there's a whole bunch of other riders that wouldn't be there at the end of Strada Bianca that should more likely be there at the end of Roubaix. So she's beating not just those the outliers like Marianne Vos and Lotte Kopecky, but she's also beating all those other riders that have a better chance of being there as well.
Yeah, I think it is such a beautiful race, Paris-Roubaix, because the winner rarely has the race all their own way from start to finish. And we'll talk about her condition coming into the race later, but for her to come into the race unsure of her form and then to have that crash, I forget which sector it was into, and then to just keep fighting and then just trusting that she will eventually get back. And maybe it was freedom of they weren't racing for her that gave her the, she was relaxed. She just had to be there for Marianne Vos, then gave her the confidence to go on the attack on, ironically, like it is the flattest race, but she found like the one rise to attack on. To motor solo, she has to be like the least aero winner of Paris-Roubaix Femmes avec Zwift.
She does sit so upright on the bike. I mean, yeah, like a totally different victory to any result she's had so far this year, in that she, like, for Strada, she got into a break, basically like a late race move, and got herself ahead of the action. But in this one, she waited until the right moment. And we had, thanks a lot to Little Trek for softening up the race, I guess, is how they put it on the commentary, with them throwing attacks at the race and trying to get someone up the road. Ellen Van Dijk was up the road and joined the early move, which included Quintiton, and Nerlo, who was in the break at Omloop, came second at Omloop. Ellen Van Dijk joined that break. It was with 54 kilometers to go, and it was going into that sector. There was a pretty decent crash involving Pauline Ferrand-Prévot. And then on that sector, Kopecky attacked with Wiebes on her wheel, and you were watching that going like, oh my gosh, like it's the two race favorites, the two riders who, like, we were all thinking would just ride away with this. We're just riding up the road. And I was going, no, like this can't be how it ends. And they caught Van Dijk. They were joined by Vos. They had Jelena Erich in there as well. It was like such an elite group. And then Van Dijk gets dropped. Wiebes gets dropped. It all kind of comes back into a group together with 36 kilometers to go. It was a 21 rider group. So pretty consistently over every single cobble sector. It doesn't like come back together all that often. But there were more attacks from EF, from Ellen Van Dijk, and then Norsgaard got away solo with 32 kilometers to go. And PFP bridged up to Norsgaard, caught her with 23 kilometers to go, went solo over the next sector, and then coming out of the Carrefour de l'Arbre, which is the second 5-star sector and the last like really hard sector for the women, she had a 53-second gap. And I think at that point you were looking at her going, the way that she was riding, the way she was able to drop Emma, and the gap that she had, and the race was just over. I mean, there was no way that Kopecky, even going as hard as she was on the front, was going to put any dent into PFP's time. And even going into the velodrome, Letizia Borghese was able to get away from that group. And that, I mean, one, like, we're going to talk about EF and this race and them in particular, but the fact that she was able to get away just shows how disorganized I think that group was behind PFP, which obviously leads into, like, helps PFP get away as well. So it was just a really hard race, but Pauline, she timed it so well when the group was already fractured, already falling apart, and SD Worx was either not communicating or just having a bad day, or both. A masterclass. The word masterclass I feel gets overplayed, but it was a masterclass win. It was such a good win from her, and I'm happy to eat my words for this victory and this race because it was a really good one to watch.
It was funny. Like last week, I was chatting with Grace Brown at a camp we were on together, and we were just kind of workshopping how you beat SD Worx, and like we came up with some pretty silly ways to do it. But I was chatting with Grace and the other women in the peloton to basically put together a formula. And yeah, the out and out solution coming from Little Trek and Team Visma Lisa Bike and EF Education Oatly was just attack them relentlessly, and just hope that your numbers outweigh their numbers when the attacks stop. And you just got to make that gamble. And I think Little Trek and, in the end, Team Visma Lisa Bike did that. Like, it seemed like Little Trek was really the only instigator of the attacks. The others weren't really joining forces in that. Like, it seemed like for me watching the race, Team Visma Lisa Bike was always second row team. Like, it was Little Trek on the front or SD Worx on the front, and then Team Visma Lisa Bike just kind of sat their second team almost, even into the sectors. So they weren't super present, but they were present at the right moment when PFP was able to take that move.
Yeah, PFP said before the race started that she'd been ill leading up to the race. She wasn't even sure she was going to start, and so that the plan was to ride for Voss. And I feel that her getting up the road was, maybe she felt better than she expected on the day, and so she went. There's always, like, in the back of your mind, regardless of your teamworks, if you're a rider that, like PFP, who's a winner, you've always in the back of your mind got, like, oh, how can I win, even if you're working for somebody else. But I think getting up the road for her was also a little bit about, like, having Voss sit safe in that group and putting all the pressure on SD Worx, because at that point you've got Little Trek and Visma up the road, and SD Worx has no choice but to chase that down.
It was the only break that SD Worx didn't, really. Kopecky was jumping. She was jumping at shadows the entire race until Pauline went, and then all of a sudden it was like she ran out of bickies, which we did see down the track. So I think Gracie, you guys said it on the commentary. It was a bit, Kopecky was racing. Don't know if it was desperation or arrogance with the way that she was riding, in the amount of energy she was expending so early.
It was great. It was a great team riding effort from Pauline when she made that attack, because it was clear to everyone in that race, in the front of the race, how much work Kopecky had been doing. So I think no matter what team you're in, you could see that was starting to unravel. And it was then who had the legs to capitalize on that at that point in the race. And of course, Pauline is super talented. She might not have had that perfect run into the race from being unwell, but we all know that there's plenty of examples out there that people that have been sick or something's happened in the week, and then that kind of expectation and pressure and perfectionism comes away, and they have a bit more freedom. They don't overthink it. They race more on instinct, and then suddenly they're there and they've made the move. So yeah, it was obviously, in hindsight, it was the perfect move. But even when it was happening in real time, we were going, that was perfect, because everyone had been suffering. She caught them by surprise. There had already been a number of attacks, and Kopecky, as you said, Georgie, had been chasing pretty much every single one. And that was SD Worx's mistake. I don't think Weber's looked as good. I think she could have still gone for the win if SD Worx had played it differently. But I think Kopecky was easily one of the strongest in the race, if not the strongest. and she was doing a lot, and it didn't look like her and Weebus were communicating enough. There were certainly moments where they were having a chat, but they felt a little bit offbeat. And yeah, I think I would criticize them more than other teams. In hindsight, it would be easy to criticize Trek, but again, in real time, I was questioning whether they were using Van Dijk in the best way possible. But in this race, overriding it is better, and riding it on the offensive is better. So I think actually overall Trek had a plan. They stuck to it. It didn't quite work out, but at the end of the day, I think that was the right decision for them and their lineup. And SD Worx, they ran out of numbers. They only had those two there from quite a long way to go, and they weren't getting it quite right. And someone capitalized on that.
Yeah, Visma had such great teamwork, like in the early stages of the race, where Pauline and Voss had to do nothing. They had, I think we didn't get to see a ton of what the team did for Pauline and Voss before the kind of attack started to fly and the race got a little bit more interesting, and there was that crash that involved Pauline and her teammates. But they used their teammates smarter than SD Worx did, and Kopecky even said after the race that they burned through their teammates really quickly in the beginning of the race, which left Weebs and Kopecky isolated, and one of them had to work for the other. Even if you're co-leaders, one of you has to work for the other, and neither of them were really willing to do that. I think Weebs maybe just didn't have the legs to do that. Even though she came in third, there were definitely a lot of points where she looked like she was struggling a lot more than other riders. And for Kopecky, like, she obviously was really keen to win this race, possibly over keen. And maybe she was the strongest rider, but she didn't have the strength that we've seen her have in the past, where she can just like ride away. It just wasn't possible for her on the day. And yeah, like Little Trek, I mean, I think for them it's really interesting, right? Because they've had, by all accounts, like a semi-disappointing spring. They've had some good results from Balsamo, obviously, but overall, I think they probably would have expected a lot more from themselves, and especially going into Paris-Roubaix Femmes, where they've won 2 of the 4 races leading into this edition. They would have had a lot of pressure on the team to perform. The smartest thing for them is to keep Balsamo in the group and just say, okay, like, we're not going to ride for Eliza, but we're going to be mindful of like where she is at all times, and depending on how far into the race she makes it, if you make it into a certain part of the race and you're still there, then yeah, we're riding for her. But you also want to throw everything you can at a race like this. You can't just rely on one option, because you never know what's going to happen. Like, look at what happened to their men's team. Their entire team plan was around Mess, and then he got a puncture right when the winning move went. So it was done for them, and yeah, he still landed on the podium. So it was a great ride for them, but still, like, it was only for the win. And it's the same for their women's team. And they couldn't have just put all of their eggs in the Eliza basket in this instance. And I think they did a really good job with, like, obviously Emma had decent legs on the day, and she had a really well-timed attack that I was hopeful would have made it. And if she'd been able to hang on to Pauline, but obviously Pauline was just like above everyone else on the day. But I think that they did decently. I think I would critique them less than I have other races this spring.
Yeah, I think they raced it like, as Gracie said, you can't sit on your back on the back foot in a race like Roubaix. You have to use your numbers. And I mean, I used the word leader earlier when it came to Voss and Pauline, but rarely in a race like Roubaix do you just have the one leader. Usually you have a few options, and in our team it was just, yeah, whoever lasts can go for it. Really the only plan is who's going to lead into the first sector, and then after that we'll just see what happens after that, and you just ride as a team. I will say, like, the dynamic between Weebs and Kopecky, Weebs and Kopecky was strange. So Kopecky is a rider that has, Lorena Weebs didn't have Lotte Kopecky. She wouldn't have the Palmara she has had this spring. And I think it was not reciprocal in Roubaix. So I don't think Weebs was wholly transparent with Kopecky in how her legs were feeling, despite the fact she then came third. She obviously, we saw her lose the wheel multiple times in that race. I think we just had to be honest with herself and with her teammate as to how she was feeling, and then maybe switch roles earlier than perhaps I don't even think they did switch roles, to be honest. I think Kopecky was always just in for Wiebes because that's what she was told.
I mean, I think she came third not because her legs came around, but because that group kind of, at a certain point, Kopecky couldn't chase anymore.
Yeah.
And so the group kind of slowed down, and that allowed Wiebes to get enough recovery to sprint. And she's a good enough rider that regardless of how the day had gone, she's still going to have a kick at the end of the race. So it wasn't that, in the end, she was the rider that they should have had from the beginning. They should have just been riding for Kopecky.
100%. Because it would have completely mitigated any issues. Like, it would have been, if there was a gap, Wiebes closes it, or Blanca Vaz. If they'd shed the load earlier, maybe Kopecky would have been a bit more chill and would have had more energy later on. So then that attack she launched, I think it was sector 11, when Van Dijk was up the road, like that would have been done. And it could have very easily been a 60-kilometer solo. Yeah,
and it's not like Visma didn't have co-leaders. Like it just worked out that Pauline was riding for Voss and won the race. That's just how it went. The tables went that way. But going into the race with co-leaders, I feel like when you have two leaders as strong as Wiebes and Kopecky, it's a dangerous game. They need to be able to flip-flop they need to be able to communicate well enough that they can flip-flop who is one step above the other. And they just didn't do that. Like, you can have two leaders, but it only works if they are able to communicate with each other. And obviously they didn't. And for every other team, it was either like relatively leaderless, like with Little Trek, like opportunistic, as they say, or all in for one rider, like Visma with Voss. I think going into a race like Roubaix, what is crucial is just having a plan. Every single rider needs to know exactly what their job is. And unlike other races where you have a team captain on the road within the team who's able to kind of change the plan mid-race, for Roubaix, it's one of the rare races where you really can't do that because there's so much going on. There's so much luck involved, bad luck, good luck, like what have you, that flip-flopping the plan during the race is just not, it's not as smart. It's like either you have the plan at the beginning of the day and you absolutely stick to that 100%, and it goes wrong, but at least you did your job, or you have the plan, you kind of go back and forth in the race, you change the plan, and then it's like all just goes up in smoke.
But I think that comes to the maturity of the riders. Like, I'd say Wiebes Kopecky, mature enough riders have been racing long enough to say, hey, today is not for me. I don't have the legs. I know we said we'd do this, but we have to change tact here if we want to get the better result for the team. I mean, it's hard. Like, I don't want to, tell Wiebes what she was feeling, but I mean, it wasn't as selfless as I would have expected. Given everything that Kopecky's done for her, it was just, I think there was one sector where Wiebes was on the front where Kopecky launched that last attack, but it was like she had burnt 11 of her 9 matches and just had nothing. It had no zip whatsoever. So it was a shame to see, because I think it is a race that Kopecky could have done it back to back, but maybe next year when you've got sure you had Wiebes and Kopecky, but you had Shikini, Gurushki, Blanca Vaz, and who was the next one?
Marta Luck.
Marta Luck, yeah. I wonder if you had Misha Bredewald or Anna van der Breggen there. I mean, it's not an Anna van der Breggen type race, but just having that experience on the ground, would that have... I think it would have made a massive difference in how that team rode that race.
Yeah, I think Van der Breggen's probably got her eyes on the Ardennes, so she wouldn't have wanted to risk coming into Paris-Roubaix, but it obviously would have made a massive difference. I mean, I think for sure she would have been there, barring any mechanicals or crashes. And had she been there, the race they would have just had the numbers. I mean, like in any race, the numbers make such a massive difference. And Little Trek had the numbers in this race, and Visma Leasewijk had the numbers in this race, and they used their numbers more wisely. Had Anna van der Breggen been there, she would have been an additional number, but she also would not have. She would have just been putting everything on the line for Kopecky and Wiebes. She wouldn't have been riding for herself at all, and that would have been what turn the tables, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. It is a tough one, Roubaix. Like, I mostly agree with Abby in that you need to have a plan and stick to it, and try to just have one plan, one leader. But you also still have to be so flexible and be able to pivot in this race. Yeah, so I don't think I've got too much more to add on that. I think SD Worx were definitely hedging their bets, and they just didn't get it quite right today. And other times they do get it right, just because they have that pure power that they can get away with slightly poorer tactics, and it just wasn't their day. And if they had maybe one more teammate there, that would have made all the difference. I'm going to talk about who missed out, I guess, on the day. Like, we didn't see too many crashes or too many mechanicals. Certainly there was a lot, but like, there can be even more. So I feel like a lot of the favorites were they had relatively smooth run at it. Pfeiffer Georgie had a really rough day. I don't think she was on a great one like last year anyway, but I think she's been definitely coming good now in the spring. And that was super disappointing to see her have a couple of moments that the race just fell out of her hands.
Yeah, I texted her after the race and I was like, "You okay?" She's like, "Yeah, a bit sad, just a bit of skin, but I'll be all right." Yeah, she is a tough nugget. I always forget how young she is. But for her to like have the amount of injury and like adversity that she's had in her career, and to constantly keep bouncing back. I mean, she's had a tough spring, but I think she'll come good. I think the whole Picnic Post-Nl team will come good by the Grand Tours. I'm hoping for their sake that they do.
I really felt for Pfeiffer, man, watching this. Like, I think people kind of forget that she ended her season last year with a horrendous crash at the Tour de France Femmes, that she was in a neck brace for months afterwards, and really, yeah, coming back from that, not only physically, but also mentally, and still being there kind of in the crucial moments. She had mechanicals and then chase back on, and then the crash. And like, when I saw that it was her that went down, I was like, no. Like, you don't want to see any rider crash, but I really don't want to see her crash, because she's just been through so much. So that was such a bummer to see. And like, obviously my buddy Megan has Jastrab on that team. She's also had kind of a bad spring, and the whole team has just kind of been off, and they'll turn it around at some point, but it was hard to watch that. And I think of all of the riders in the race, she had maybe the worst luck of anybody, and it just, yeah, sucks. She had a bad race, but there were other riders like that we need to talk about that had a great day. Jelena Erich, for example, she was in the 5-rider move that could have been the winning move had things gone differently. She was looking so good, and like, for her to be attacking major favorites like Kopecky, it was just like, yeah, you go, girl. It's really just like great to see her up in the mix. And then obviously EF Oatley Cannondale, they had an incredible day with 2 riders. Like, we had Allison Jackson in that 5-rider move, and obviously when she won Roubaix a couple years ago, she won it by getting ahead of the race, by going in the early doomed breakaway that stuck. And this time she was at the pointy end with the race favorites, and it was just so great to see, especially coming off of injury. She crashed earlier in the season, and she's coming back now. So that was just awesome. And Letizia Borghese, who had an awesome ride at Flanders, coming good for this one and landing herself on the podium. I think EF Oatley Cannondale are the team that deserves to be in the World Tour, that deserves to be in the World Tour, and they just continually prove that over and over. And Kaylee Fretz caught up with Carmen Small in the velodrome and talked about how they still see themselves as underdogs in the race, and how they approach this race in particular.
You're not really underdogs in this race anymore. You can't say that anymore.
I think we still are underdogs. I mean, we've only been a team for 1 year, and it's still a work in progress. So I think still we don't have the depth within our team that maybe some teams have. But I keep telling the girls, if they ride together as a team, we are one of the strongest teams. And I think that's like the secret for these races.
Well, you seem to have a couple riders who really love this. I mean, I'm thinking of sort of Allison first and foremost, but that is obvious in the way that it's ridden too.
Yeah, I think it was the case, like, I told them last night, like, this race depends on who wants it the most at the end. If we're there with 2, with 3, great, but it's in the end who wants it the most. Everyone is suffering. And if you go for it, then you can finish it off if you really, really want it. And I think that's how they rode today. They really rode with their heart, and super impressive. I mean, Letitia wants to win everything. So does Allison. So it's a good combination in the end.
Talk to me a little bit about tactics. Like, how did you set up, given how last weekend went, given the fact that we've got this level of dominance within the women's peloton right now? Like, how do you prepare for that, and how do you set the team up for that?
Yeah, so basically we broke it into like 2 groups. So we had like kind of a working group with 3 riders, and then we had Sarah, Letitia, and Allison to go into the final. So we were hoping to have 3 in the final. And with Sarah's crash, that didn't happen, of course. But we had 2 there, which was enough in the end. I mean, chapeau to Prevost. It was a really good move. When she went, it was a really good part in the race. And then no one really wanted to commit to chase. So in the end, I knew we were racing for second. That's a big deal for us to podium on a race like this. So I think, yeah, it's a win for us at the end. So,
do you learn anything about how SD Worx and Kopecky and all the rest, how they operate today? Did anything useful come out of that?
I think in the end, it's what I said at the beginning of the year, actually, to the team. A lot of times we're going to have situations where the solo person is going to win, because SD Worx doesn't have the depth like they did before. Yeah, you put in like new people like Prevost. We know she's really good. Yeah. So it like equaled out all the teams almost, like the big teams, it almost equaled out. And so I think, yeah, it's really interesting.
He also caught up with Allison Jackson, who is one of the only riders in the world who absolutely loves this race.
Dude, you love this race.
I love this race. I do.
Why?
Oh, man. I mean, the atmosphere here it's like nothing else, but also it's just the fight that's out there. I mean, you have to grit, and you have to go and dig deep and come back, and there's chaos, and yeah, I love all of that.
Can we talk tactics for a second?
Yeah.
So after last weekend, you guys really took it to SD Worx today. Like, it seemed like the whole peloton was almost in cahoots on this front. But talk to me about how you sort of set up the team, who's going to do what, how you plan to counteract somebody like Kopecky.
Yeah, I mean, first we just wanted numbers in the final, and then the surest way to win is to come solo. So that's what we wanted to do. We used our younger riders, Alex and Babette and Nina, to position us. Babette was unbelievable today, guiding me all the way through the peloton. And I mean, really, it's a race to those first cobbles, and then you got to grind it as we go from there. We had some problems, Letty flatted earlier, Sarah crashed, we came back, then we had just Letty and I, and we really were just, not doing too much. You know, we're kind of in a small group in a headwood section, not the best part to make a go of it. And then, we were just basically, Letitia and I were watching Lorena and Kopecky. We're going to, take it to the team that way. When Jumbo went, it's up to, we're not going to pull it back for Lorena or Kopecky. We know they're faster than us. And they were really committed to do it for Lorena, just a little bit too late, and Pauline was obviously the strongest.
Is that a blueprint you can use elsewhere in the season, or is this race really nothing like anything else, and so it doesn't necessarily work out like that elsewhere?
Well, it's really hard for groups to come back. So once you're in that small group, you got to play with the numbers. SD Worx did have 2, Jumbo had 2, Lidl Trek had quite a few, so we got to play the numbers. And SD Worx, there's more pressure on them. They're reigning champions, so there's a little bit more looking to them, that they've got to do the work. That's the gamble.
I feel like people, like, obviously watching on TV, you can tell that it's hard. Like, it's a hard race to race. But I do not think people understand, like, how hard this is on your body, this race, and how the recovery and how much recovery it takes.
It's nuts. Like, it's recovery from, like, obviously, like, you're cooked because you've just raced 150 Ks full gas. But, like your bones are sore. It's for days afterwards, and like your hands are ripped. Like I'm an ex-rower, so I'm used to blisters, man. But like my hands are obliterated at the end of Roubaix. Like Silke Smulders, who came second at TDU this year, she couldn't ride her bike for 2 weeks after Roubaix last year. Her hands were that gone. It's nuts. Like I think, yeah, you can't sit down properly. Like some people literally cannot ride their bikes for days afterwards.
And then you have Loretta.
And then you have Loretta, who I actually got film evidence of how she taped her hands. For the listeners, Loretta Hansen did not get one blister at Paris-Roubaix, which is, I didn't believe her. She's one of my best mates, but I had to get video evidence of her hands, which I then shared with the crew. And then I inquired as to her taping methodology, because she taped and she gloved. And she kept it simple. It was just wrist tape, and then tape around the knuckles on her thumbs, and around the knuckles on her index finger. And that was it. And she didn't get one blister. It's just
maybe
incredible.
She has like, you know who is it? Remco has arrow skin. Maybe she has like Paris-Roubaix skin.
I mean, she's been brought up, she's a good country girl from Victoria. So she's probably, brought up tough, carrying buckets from a young age.
Good for her. I was disappointed to see her not able to participate further into the race. And I think she wrote that she gave her bike to Lucinda Brand, which I think is a mistake considering how well Loretta's been riding this spring. Of course, Brand is like excellent bike handler. We all know that, how good she's on a cyclocross bike and on the road too. Following her through a road corner is terrifying. But like she's proven herself. I don't know why they would have not had more of an open plan, because it looked like Trek had an open plan. It didn't look like they had one super strong leader. So yeah, I was a bit like disappointed to read that, of being like, oh, thought it would have been every woman for themselves, like not in a bad way, but just in a like that was their strength,
And given how well she's been riding this year as well, like she's proven herself, but also this year she seems to be on the form of her life.
Yeah.
Yeah. At what point when you're in the team meeting do you raise your hand and say, I want to be one of the leaders for today, or I want to be the leader for today, if you're Loretta? Like, I think she's earned a place to do that, and to put her neck out. But I know that's not her natural state. So it might take a little bit, but yeah, I really hope she's given a shot. I was sad to not see her up there. I think this is a really good race for her. She'll be at the Ardennes, though, like Amstel. She'll be at Amstel and races like that as well. So it's not the last we'll see of her in this spring. No,
but you have to ask yourself, like, say things had gone differently and she had been there in the end when they were, or like when the section of the race where Trek were really firing off attacks and she'd gone instead of Emma, who has had kind of a couple setbacks this spring. Like she's been sick and clearly like she's riding well, but had Loretta been off the front instead of, then would she have been able to stick to Pauline's wheel, for example? It's like, that's a fun game to play, is like, what if? But I feel like in that scenario, I would have maybe backed Loretta to at least hang on, and she wouldn't have had to work at all because like Balsamo's in the group behind. She could have rolled through, like, for sure, and like when they were off the cobbles, and then maybe come second. But for Loretta, second at Paris-Roubaix is a career changer. Yeah, I mean, I think the peloton would have underestimated her a bit more as well. For sure. Not that they didn't underestimate Norsgaard. I thought Norsgaard also just got a gap really quickly. But I don't know if, I think Loretta has proven herself as a time trialist. She even did time trial nationals here in Australia a few years ago. Like, she has the capability for really long sustained power. Through Scandinavia 2023, she was in the hot seat for the time trial for like ages. So she has the capability for that long effort. Maybe she can sneak away soon in a race, but I think it is a fun game to play. But retrospect is 2020. You never know. Mm-hmm. And we might be biased. I am definitely not biased. Completely objective. Got absolutely no skin in this game. Overall, I'm not going to a wedding in October.
And before you wrap it up, can we just spare a brief moment for Marianne Vos? Like, yeah. I think all of us would have been stoked to see her win. she was very, very gracious at the end. And it was nice to see that imagery of her being genuinely happy for Pauline. So, yeah, it would have been probably pretty hard for her to just swallow it another year and just be like, I got to come back again. Can't quite get it right, because she looked really good on Saturday.
It is a race for her, and I don't know how many more years she has in her, but I've got the faith that the goat will cross the finish line first in Roubaix one day. She's just had such shit luck over the years in this race, from fighting back to punctures and then having a team. Like, is it shit luck when your teammate goes up the road when you want to win the race? Maybe. Yeah, it's not. She hasn't had the best run at this race, so I would like to see her have a clean run one day.
Yeah, I mean, everyone wants to see Voss win this race. I feel like there's no one on planet Earth who is rooting against her to win this race. But that's who she is. She's just a gracious human being. So it was great to see her being so happy for PFP when they would have gone into the race with Voss being the out and out leader. And we definitely wouldn't have seen that from every leader had their teammate gone up the road and taken the race. So just another reason to love Voss. But God, I hope she wins this. Like, you could tell the moves that she was following and the way that she was riding, you could tell that she was on a good day. And it just so happened that the person who took the race was her teammate. So there was nothing she could really do when PFP was up the road, nor would she want to, as a good teammate. But man, she looked great. I did think for a little while, I was like, oh man, this is it.
She's on one.
This is the day.
That attack so after Monza Pavel, you've got that, you come off and you go right and you got that rise. First of all, like, Monza Pavel sucks because of the sector before, not because of the sector itself, but the sector before it is shit. Like, it's because it's just this slight drag uphill and it just zaps the legs and you don't have much rest, and then you go into Monza Pavel, which is one of the 2 5-star sectors that we have in this race, and then you get off that sector and then you got this bastard of like, in any other race it'd be like a short little, nipple, but it was like this, like, just like, it looks like a fucking mountain.
Did you just say nipple?
Yeah, bump.
And little itty bitty climb.
I am the president of the Itty Bitty Titty Committee, so use that. Me and Nina Kessler, we've got a club. We turn right off that sector, and you go up the climb, and it feels monstrous. But for Kopecky to go there, and then for Voss, sorry, it was a Freudian slip to then say boss because she is one.
Love
but
that,
then
yeah.
Voss to like hang on her wheel, unreal. So she was clearly on such a good day. But we also need to talk about Dygert. Can we talk about Dygert?
Sure.
Quick? Like, she closed. She went and got her apprenticeship because she was like a masterful welder all day, just getting the welder out and just, getting those gaps nice and tight.
I loved the comment that she made before the race about how her raw power would make up for any lack of skill. Like, a very Dygert thing to say. Yeah. And also, like, relatively true. She's just such an insane rider that she's only really been racing in the World Tour and these elite races for so long, for a couple years, while like on and off for like basically 2 years. And she's able to come 8th at Roubaix, but more so just be there for so much of the race. I mean, you had Chiara Consoni kind of make it up into that group in the end when it became a bigger group fighting for the podium spot, for the final 2 podium spots. But just such an incredible rider, Dygert. I think every single time she does something like this, I'm like, man, you just continuously underestimate what she's capable of doing, because for so long she was splitting track and road and she just wasn't present. And it's just always a surprise when she's there.
Yeah, she could definitely win this race in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
That was all. I also wanted just to give a shout out to her teammate in Zoe Baxter. I thought she was brilliant as well. I think they worked off each other well.
Yeah. She was cooking herself for a teammate. Like, the facial expressions, backstep pulling. Unreal. But yeah, I mean, I think this race also holds a really special place in the heart of the Backstead sisters. Like, it was great to see Eleanor there. I think she had a mechanical at one point because the cameraman went past her and she was yelling into her radio, "Can you hear me?" in her Welsh accent. So I think there was something wrong there, but it's always good to see those sisters up there in a race like Paris-Roubaix.
I just love there was a photo, I think it was maybe Dominique Powers posted a photo of the two of them with their dad's name plaque in the shower.
That's there.
It was really cute. And then obviously we had the images of Letizia Borghese waiting for the podium, and her sister came to congratulate her from Human Powered Health, and that was also really cute.
Oh, it's just, I love women's sport. It's so good.
Yeah, it is really great. They also like congratulate each other, and like they're so
yeah. However,
just women in general.
will be a topic in the newsletter this week. Women's sport has entered its villain era, and I'm very excited about it. Like, I think
nice little teaser.
Yeah, women's sport has like always been like nice, you know, and like now we've got a bit of swagger about us, and we're not afraid to rock the boat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Weebus was standing pretty far away from everyone else waiting for the podium. We could read into that if we wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying they're going like full Dennis Rodman spec, but like I feel like there is some beef going on here.
Probably.
Yeah.
There's always some kind of beef. You hear about it at the coffee shop, but then you never actually get to like see it.
I think we've seen it. Like because I in that race, they were talking to each other, Weebus and Kopecky. Like, it was pretty visible that they were communicating. So something went awry. Someone wasn't honest. Someone was a bit overly confident.
I think what will be interesting is if this situation with the two of them has any impact on the remainder of the season and races where they are both going into a race as the favorite. I don't think so, because they're professionals at the end of the day, and Paris-Roubaix Femmes is its own beast. Like, obviously Kopecky wanted to win and do the Flanders Paris-Roubaix double, and Weebus wanted to win because it's Paris-Roubaix Femmes, but it is a special race, and I don't think that the same thing is going to happen, like even at the Tour, really. If they go into the Tour and they both want to win the first stage, I don't think they're going to be butting heads. Like, I think this is a special situation.
I think there'll be other people on the team to balance it out.
Yeah. Anna van der Breggen's not going to stand up for that shit. She's not going to.
No. Absolutely not. And like Demi Vollering wasn't there, so there wasn't this like you know, common bad that they're all fighting against. You know, it wasn't like the I don't know if who's the villain in Lord of the Rings, Abby. It's not like. Oh, by the way, that Discord chat was awesome. When
oh my god, it was so good. Are you talking about Sauron?
Yeah, Sauron, that one.
Who's the villain in
that one?
Can't believe you didn't know that. I thought you were a nerd.
I've watched all all movies extended editions. Haven't read the books, but I had a mental blank. I know I call
fine. The extended editions are if you've seen the extended editions, then you pass. You pass. I
call the EY building in Melbourne the Tower of Sauron from time to time when I see it. Yeah.
If you were to say I've seen all the movies and I was to say extended editions, and you were to say oh no, then I would say get out.
Yeah.
I would actually. I have the power to kick you out of the chat.
We did assign characters to all the world talk.
Gracie is Galadriel, obviously.
Yeah. Kate Blanchett.
Oh, thank you. I'll take that as a compliment.
It is a compliment.
It's scary.
No.
Oh, it's fine.
Just don't let me near any of your jewelry.
In terms of race or rider dynamics, actually, on a team, and how this race might change things, I am a little bit curious about how this might change the Voss PFP dynamic. Because I think that they still aren't quite sure how that dynamic works within the team, and the management isn't quite sure how to deal with two legends. And maybe going into this race, PFP, even with her podium finishes so far this year, she's still coming into the road and has to figure out her space in the road scene still. But Voss is the GOAT, you know, so she's got that title for life. And now with PFP taking Paris-Roubaix Femmes, she was very adamant that she wants to win the Tour in the next 3 years. And how does this impact how the team deals with that and these two riders?
Voss isn't a GC rider. So I think it's going to actually, I think Voss is classy, mature. All the good things in the world are attributed to Marina Voss. But I don't know PFP and how she is how her character is. And it's not for me to comment. But I think being a GC rider means that her remit will be very different in a space like a Tour. Whereas Voss will be that ruler, that sprinter type. They'll be performing different roles. I think, as to our point earlier around Paris-Roubaix, it is such a unique race in the fact that it is so open. So it is opportunistic, and you have to take those moments when they come. But I think in a Tour, it is way more structured. So, and I think they should be both mature enough to stay in their lanes in a race like that.
I think it'll come down. Like, I agree. I think that they've got different roles when it comes to Tours. I think the challenge for that team is going to be how the teammates support both of their ambitions with stage wins and overall, because they don't have that history yet of good teamwork overall in that team. They've definitely been improving, particularly in this last season or two. We're seeing them a lot more present and as a unit in the bunch, but you're not going to be like, oh, they've got the best lead out, or that Pauline was going to have great climbing support or whatever. So I think that's going to be a challenge for them. For Voss, she doesn't really need a lot of support, so she can still get some stage wins on her own. And Pauline maybe doesn't need a lot of help either, but I think that's going to be a bit more challenging when it comes to Tours.
Yeah, navigating those races is where she'll need the support.
Now that Pauline's won Paris-Roubaix Femmes and like had the comeback so far that we've seen, do we think she can win the Tour de France
This year?
I think it goes,
or in 3 years?
in the next 3 years?
yeah. I think it depends on the team that they build around her as well. It's because it's not just Pauline.
Yeah.
We haven't really seen
then-
her on a climb more than 10 minutes though yet, have we? Like, that's going to be interesting.
UAE was the only one.
Yeah, and she wasn't really going great at UAE. Like, yeah. I'm curious how she's gonna translate this, and also how ASO is going to build the courses with her goal in mind, and that they might be able to have a French Tour winner in the future.
That's why there's no TT this year.
Correct. And I think there's going to be a French female winner of the Tour in the next 6 years. The question is just, is it going to be PFP, or can someone else take that title from her first? But with Demi Vollering on FDJ Suez, it's going to be harder for Evita to be that rider.
Yeah.
We'll see. All right, let's wrap it up. We've got the Ardennes coming up this weekend. We have Amstel Gold Race, and then we will be back to preview La Flèche Wallonne, which is going to be a really big one this year, with Anna van der Breggen coming back she won it 7 years in a row before handing on the title. So she's back. What does that mean? But first, Amstel Gold Race. Hopefully this year won't be as ridiculous as last year, where we had the race basically neutralized for the vast majority of the race, and then a 30-kilometer long race to decide the winner.
It was a kermesse. It was a kermesse.
Man, it was such a weird race last year. Such a weird race. But this year, hopefully we get a good one. And this is one of my favorite races on the calendar. I just think it's really fun. We've got riders won by riders like Kashini Udoma, but Voss won it last year. So it can go different ways. This was one of one of the marquee wins of Cavalli when she was kind of coming onto the scene 2022 for FDJ before she won the back-to-back with Flesh Wallone as well. And Demi Vollering's won it. So it's a good one. Excited about this one. And it's a hilly one. We're into in case people don't know what the Ardennes means, that means it's like the last 3 races of the spring. We've moved out of the cobbled classics and into the hillier classics. And there's 3 races to kind of to end the spring, starting with Amstel Gold Race, which is kind of the least hilly of the 3, I guess I would say. But it's around in the Netherlands. It's around a circuit with a couple climbs and ends with a climb. The Kauberg, right? Yeah. With like 3 kilometers of flat, I think a little bit less maybe to the finish. Normally like attacks fly on that final climb, and they either can come back together or not. It's always Kashni Madoma instigating that final climb, and we've seen her get away thanks to that, and we've also seen things come back together. But it's just a selective race and no cobbles in sight, but the roads are quite narrow, especially going into on the final circuits. So it just makes for really fun racing, really. The start list: Voss, PFP, Kopecky, Van de Bregen, Breedewald, Ashley Moman-Passio is back. Curious what she can do. Kim LaCourte, I saw her at the coffee shop the other day.
Oh, you're famous.
Rarely starstruck, but I was like, oh, hello. You're very good.
Longo's racing.
She's of the generation who doesn't know who I am, and I don't know her. So always awkward. Kashni Madoma. No Digert for this one. I think she's kind of earned herself a break, especially given that she's never really raced a full road season before. She'll need to temper that effort. Vollering is back. So we've got a bunch of former winners in the race.
Longo is going to be back after a concussion.
I hope that they're not bringing her back too fast.
Yeah, me too.
That seems pretty quick.
The Ardennes are interesting because you get a crossover with riders coming off the back of the cobbled classics and some riders that haven't gone to some of those cobbled classics. Vollering, for example, skipped Flanders and Roubaix, so she's come off a bit of an altitude block. She'll be fresher, and these races obviously suit her very well. So it's also tough this time of year if you are doing that full calendar, which many riders actually don't anymore, whereas we did used to a lot more. There's obviously more riders per team now and more specialization in the bunch, but there's still plenty of riders on this list that are doing it all, and it's tough to push that peak out longer and to have different legs, like, because these races are more hilly even than Flanders. So coming off the back of Roubaix as well, I think that would be quite a jarring feeling to go into Amstel. There's some riders that don't have a problem with that. I would always be pedaling squares after Flanders, no matter what I did, and that was always super frustrating. But I think for me, that was because it was an emotional come down after Flanders. So yeah, it's really about how the riders have been managing themselves, how the team has been managing them, their fueling strategies, their recovery strategies. But yeah, their mentality as well coming into this last part of the Spring Classics, because it has been such an intense block of racing.
I think that speaks to like the size of the teams and the demands of the calendar. So it's teams don't have the luxury of resting riders as much as they probably should, because they want results and they need results. So if we look at PFP's racing this, she did the Flanders Roubaix double, same with Voss, they're coming in. Kopecky, Wiebes they've both had a huge spring. So we're seeing those top riders have more demands put upon them just because of the size of the teams, I think. And really the riders are just getting swapped out of those support riders.
This will be an even bigger conversation, I think, going into the Vuelta, where they're gonna need to have riders that race the cobble classics be support for the climbers going into the Vuelta, and how exactly they're gonna play that. I already know that Longa Borghini, who was on the podium of the Vuelta last time, she's not racing the Vuelta this year.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I'm intrigued to see how Puck goes. I haven't really seen much of her, so it'd be cool to
Yeah.
see how she goes in these. Is she targeting the Ardennes? Do we know?
She must be. She must be. I mean, she's targeting a World Tour win, and yeah, she's been away for a minute. I think she's going to be coming back. And let's wrap it up. We'll be back next week. Before we go, obsessions. You guys got any?
I've been binging something that Lauren, I think she was obsessed with this like ages ago, probably like 2 years ago or something, but it's Working Mums on Netflix.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's so good. Like, I'm glad that I waited because when she suggested it, I think I was maybe not even pregnant or pregnant, and I wasn't ready for that next phase, and I wouldn't have related. And recently I've just been struggling a little bit just with getting back into what I was doing before being a mum, and just juggling that and the pressure that I've put on myself to do it all. So it's been such like a nice little thing that I could just chuck on. They're short episodes, they're funny, and it's just nice to be reminded that life is messy, and yeah, it's fine. Like, just get on with it. And also that love comes in many forms, and one of the best ones is friends.
Oh, ain't that the truth?
Big ups for that. Mine is a clothing brand based in Melbourne, in Brunswick. It's called Suk, so S-U-K. And like, as someone who always has like big power producing legs that I'm very proud of, but always struggled to find pants that fit me through like my rowing and cycling journey, it's like always tough. So when I find a brand that like is good and fits me well, I'm a big fan. And they've got like 6 stitching on the ass. So like, I'll get up and show you. Can you guys see that?
Show us your bum. Oh yeah.
The listeners, I just should be in the Discord. I just, moved Abby and Gracie. Now it's actually made by like a mum actually, and she wanted like workwear that's functional. And like, I think with women's clothing we don't often get pockets, so this is like an abundance of pockets, which I'm a big fan of. So they've got like heaps of different styles, but big fan
Hate
of that.
a purse, love a pocket.
Oh, we're on the same wavelength, 100%.
That's why I wear vests all the time, because they have zip pockets.
It feels quite luxurious, doesn't it, to like go out without a bag?
Yeah,
it's freeing.
like freeing. Yeah. I have kind of 2 obsessions. So my first obsession, just really quick, is I'm testing the new Liv Langma. After months of it hanging in my garage, since they sent it to me when I was heavily pregnant, I'm finally getting to ride it. And I actually forgot how much fun it is to ride outside. Like, I ride Zwift so much that I forgot that riding outside is actually quite nice. It's a really fun experience. So the other day I went and smashed L's as hard as I could, for kicks and giggles, and also to see how the bike handled on the climb and the descent. And man, I just had a great time. And then I was the hungriest I've ever been in my life. It is a really nice bike.
It's a lovely bike. They've done a great job with this range.
Yeah. Full review to come. But one thing that I just really haven't been able to let go of is my husband and I are big fans of John Oliver and his late night show. And normally he covers like one big topic in a show, and a lot of the times it has to do with like very niche topics in America. But one of the recent things that he did was trans athletes, and how the current administration in the US is handling trans athletes and banning trans athletes from sport. This is a topic that we've talked about on the podcast before, because it comes up in cycling every once in a while. But I was really happy to see it covered, because I feel like a lot of the time people spout things that they read that aren't really true, and people are very opinionated about the topic of trans women in women's sports specifically. But I thought that they did a good job of highlighting that a lot of the people who are advocating against trans women in women's sports are not doing so because they care about women's sports, and that is an excuse that they're using, but it's not necessarily true. So I liked the way that they covered it. I giggled a little bit at a cyclocross mention in the John Oliver. Like, John Oliver is like a huge like HBO production, and there was a bit of cyclocross in there, which I thought was really hilarious. And yeah, I was just happy to see the topic covered by John Oliver, who does like just really random things. But this was one that I was like, it was late at night. We really needed to go to bed. And then Tom's was like, oh, the next one is trans athletes. And I was like, no, we have to watch that. I need to see it. And yeah, definitely worth the watch if you can find it on the internet.
Yeah. An explosive topic for many. And I won't open that Pandora's box, but
yeah, we don't need
I'm
to,
glad it
we
was
don't need to dive into it in this episode.
Yeah, but I'm glad that it was given airspace on a platform like John Oliver's. So yeah.
And the Discord can do what they will. Hopefully the Discord members watch it and the conversation is a empathetic one in the chat. I think our members are normally
break it up with pictures of my ass if it gets too serious.
Yes, I'll throw that in there if there's too much political talk going on. All right, thanks everyone so much for listening to this episode. We'll be back next week. Thanks you two for your takes and have a good week.